now, who's the Labour MP.
Well, good afternoon everyone, and can I first of all start off by saying a very warm hello and greetings to you all on this May Day demonstration, and also fraternal greetings from my colleagues in the Parliamentary Labour Party and the Northern Group of Labour MPs. I'm just a little bit sad though that more of them haven't come to join us here today, but I'm sure we're going to improve that in future years. And the first thing I want to say is that it's only 12 months since the general election. 12 months in which we've actually seen the Tory party laid bare in terms of their ambitions, and the Lib Dems on their coattails doing so many dreadful things to our communities. But before I go any further, one thing I should say is they also intend to attack this very Workers' Day, this May Day holiday that we have this weekend. There are many people in the Tory party who want to see an end to May Day and have a transfer of the bank holiday to October for Trafalgar Day. Well, let's actually just kill that. Let's just kill it from the outset. And let's defend May Day so that workers can help to defend themselves. We've seen 12 months of vicious cuts designed purely for ideological reasons to reduce care and public services to the most vulnerable in our communities. Comrades, as we all know, despite their carefully crafted media makeover, it's the same old Tories, aided and abetted, propped up even by the Lib Dems, and I'll come back to them later. But as for the Tories, their mission, as always, is to protect the wealthy and the privileged and ensure that the poorest in our society are the ones who have to suffer to get us out of this ridiculous deficit situation. And I'm sure, like me, you'll now be sick of the constant mantra of this government. The previous government spent too much. The country has to pay for the cost of Labour's extravagant expenditure. We've got to cut because of the financial mess Labour Party left us with. We're all in this together. And if anyone dares to question their logic, you're immediately branded as a deficit denier. As if to question the orthodoxy of vicious spending cuts is akin to denying the Holocaust or something of that nature. I know it's regarded as unparliamentary to accuse fellow parliamentarians of lying or being untruthful, but I'm afraid on this one I have to do so. If it looks like a duck, it walks like a duck, floats like a duck, flies like a duck, it has a bill, it has feathers, it eats bread in the park lake, when we throw it to it on a sad day, it quacks like a duck, it's probably, without much fear of contradiction, a duck, and that's what the Tories are. And yet you keep on parroting and peddling the phrases because of the massive deficit that we left them with, and because of the mismanagement of the economy. They say we have to cut because of the gross overspending left to them by Labour. But between 1997 and 2007, just before the credit crunch kicked in, public spending as a percentage of gross domestic product had only grown by 1% in this country. There was no overspending of any great shape or form. Yes, the last government spent more on hospitals, schools and on welfare, but the money came from a growing economy. The financial crisis wasn't caused by government spending. It wasn't caused by spending on hospitals, the NHS, the police, schools, or even on burgeoning bureaucracy. It was not Labour's mismanagement of the economy in Britain that caused the global crisis and massive government overspends and deficits in Spain, Greece, Portugal, Ireland, Iceland, the United States and Japan. That wasn't Labour's policies that did all that. And it shouldn't be the poorest in our communities who have to pay the price to deal with it. No, colleagues, the financial crisis was caused by the banks.
Yes.
By greedy, irresponsible bankers. And they're the ones who should be paying, but not under this government. In addition to allowing the bankers to restart their bonus culture with money in our banks, they're now presiding over a tax haven, or a dodger's heaven for the bankers. The government's own figures estimate that companies and individuals in the UK are avoiding tax to the tune of £45 billion, and some estimates put it as high as £100 billion. We all know the names: Philip Green, Vodafone, Topshop, Tesco, Dorothy Perkins, RBS, Barclays, NatWest. They're all doing it. They've all got their heads in the trough. Take Boots, for example. That great British company of Quaker origins. Traditionally, Boots paid about a third of its overall profits in tax. However, since being taken over by a venture capital company, Boots has registered its head office in Switzerland, and last year from Boots of over a £450 million profit, they paid only 3% tax, saving Boots £150 million in that financial year. And what are the government doing about tax avoidance? Hardly a thing. In fact, in real terms, not a sausage. Yet, surprise, surprise, they're falling over themselves to cut £17 billion from the welfare benefits bill to attack the NHS and to attack local government. Government estimates alone say that some 400,000 local and central government employees could lose their jobs as a result of these cuts. That's your jobs, my job, my friends' jobs. This year alone, those cuts have had a dramatic effect on our region. We've actually just seen in a month of so-called recovery on unemployment, national unemployment went down by 11,000, but in the northeast it went up by 11,000 in the northeast, nationally went down by 17,000. It just shows you the southeast is a very different place to the northeast of England, and we have to do something about that. The government did away with our RDA, and it wasn't working well enough, but it was working better than this shambles are doing anything about it now. And the government say we're all in this together, and yet councils in the northeast of England are taking cuts to the margin of £84 per head of population, compared to cuts of only £21 per head of population for councils in the southeast outside of London. 4 times great cuts for a region like the northeast, which is already by comparison impoverished. And what are they doing now? Since May last year, every decision that they have taken has benefited the most privileged in our communities at the cost of the poorest and least advantaged. The local government grant settlement has been skewed towards the southeast. The cancellation of the BSF Building Schools for the Future programme has impacted in poorest areas. The Academies Bill, the Localism Bill, the budget, the so-called Welfare Reform Bill, the now pause on the Health Service Reform Bill, they're all going to have an impact in the poorest communities. So they're driven by ideology that even came up with a mad idea of privatising the forests. In no other area are their intentions more clear than in the field of education. I have the privilege of sitting on the Education Select Committee in Parliament. Remember before the election last May, Nick Clegg said that he would pledge to abolish tuition fees. Yet in government he presides as Deputy Prime Minister with an administration which has tripled tuition fees to £9,000. And it's not the exception, by the way. David Willits, the Higher Education Minister, started off by promising that 9,000 would be a rare exception. Yet here in the northeast of England, Newcastle and Durham universities are charging £9,000. Northumbria, Teesside and Sunderland are all charging £8,500. How can that be an exception? They are erecting the greatest barriers designed to stop working class, ordinary kids from progressing into higher education. And that includes the abolition of the education maintenance allowance. And what a disaster that will be for this region, for the northeast of England. The principal of Gateshead College confirmed to me that 67% of 18 to 20-year-olds attending Gateshead College were in receipt of EMA, and of them, 70% were in receipt of EMA at the higher level. Across the northeast, there were 36,000 youngsters who were able to receive EMA at the higher level of £30 a week. And not enough, by the way, but at £30 a week, that now being slashed away from our local economy and from the chances of our youngsters to actually make themselves into better individuals by going through further education. At every level, colleagues, the coalition has demonstrated clearly their disdain for supporting kids in education. By the way that they're going on, you'd think that they simply don't like children, that they don't like kids at all. In recent research of 69% of teachers reported that they believe in the coalition's education reforms would entrench a widening socio-economic gap in primary and secondary education. And the survey conducted by the NFER on behalf of the Sutton Trust also shows that less than 10% of teachers in mainstream schools believe the policies would help close the gap between poorer students and their more affluent counterparts. And I bet every one of those card-carrying members of the Tory party or the Liberal Liberal Democrats. The survey also demonstrated that teachers were most opposed to the idea of free schools, schools which can set up by teachers, charities and even by private entrepreneurs. Only 8% of teachers believe that free schools are going to improve educational outcomes for poorer students, while 64% of teachers disagreed very strongly. Teachers are not the only knowledgeable people though about this, and we all know that parents have a real say in this, and we've got to convince parents of the falseness of the coalition cuts and the coalition policies. Comrades, I'm sure that coalition policymakers do not like young people. The list of things that they've done in children's policy is unbelievable. They've abolished child trust funds. They've reduced funding for Sure Start. They've scrapped the Play Builder programme. They were going to abolish but now had to greatly reduce the school sports partnership programme. They've scrapped Aim Higher. They've binned creative partnerships for schools. They've ended universal child entitlement to child benefit. They've ended building schools for the future. They've abolished the Future Jobs Fund. And as I previously stated, they've scrapped EMA and they've trebled tuition fees. They really don't like kids, and we must defend the interests of children in our society. And as much as I was often a critic in my previous job as Deputy Leader of Gateshead Council of the previous Labour government, that government did invest in the NHS, in more doctors, more nurses, to end waiting lists, and the cancer guarantee. They invested in Sure Start, building schools for the future, in decent homes and police numbers, and also dramatically decreased the level of crime in our society. And yes, I will say that we had and missed an opportunity to do so much more for a region like the northeast of England. But I honestly believe there are now people in the Parliamentary Labour Party representing Labour from this region who will fervently work and work very, very hard to make sure that we don't make those mistakes again. Comrades, I bring you those greetings once again, and I wish you all a wonderful May Day and keep the fight going. Thank you very much indeed.